After rising to fame as a TV heartthrob, Johnny Depp became an A-list movie star, loved by fans and well paid by studios.
I'm not so concerned about the money, really.
Fans love his quirky on-screen characters, but his off-camera antics and ugly divorce from Amber Heard showed a darker side of Johnny Depp.
Heard was granted a temporary restraining order which prevented Depp from being within 100 feet of her.
When Depp squared off against his own financial managers, the actor's astonishing spending habits were exposed for the world to see.
A financial advisor can only give advice. He or she can't force the client to take the advice.
On Fortune Fights, husband and wife media experts and attorneys Danielle and Andy Mayoras explore the lives and legal battles of Hollywood's biggest stars. On this episode, how Johnny Depp rose to fame and fortune, only to jeopardize it all. Hollywood superstar Johnny Depp's rise to fame and fortune has been a rocky road. He's earned hundreds of millions, only to lose it through questionable decisions and carefree spending. Media experts and attorneys Danielle and Andy Mayoras detail the legal journey Depp has taken over the years and delve into the star's current legal woes.
Before he became a box office sensation, Johnny Depp was a high school dropout with a delinquent streak and a less than lavish lifestyle.
Depp was born in Owensboro, Kentucky in 1963. His mother was a waitress and his father was a civil engineer.
His parents divorced when he was a teenager, so it was just him and his mom. So they had kind of like meager means, at the time. And, mom would get jobs working in like restaurants or something small like that. But she and Johnny were always together.
Depp dreamed of bigger things. In 1983, when he was 20 years old, he married Lori Ann Allison and moved to Los Angeles, where she worked as a makeup artist, and Johnny pursued his dream of being a rock star.
They were a young couple barely scraping by. Johnny Depp wasn't making any money as a musician, so he took a job as a telemarketer.
At the time, I was selling pens over the telephone. I used to call up people and say, "Hi, I'm whatever. Would you like to buy some pens?"
His wife connected him with actor Nicolas Cage, who suggested Depp try acting.
Nicolas Cage introduced Johnny Depp to an agent, and Johnny ended up getting cast in Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street. He made $25,000, and almost instantly, his acting career was more successful than his music career and his marriage. He and his wife divorced about a year after the movie came out.
Depp then landed a role in Platoon and began a string of whirlwind romances with actresses Sherilyn Fenn, Jennifer Grey, and supermodel Kate Moss.
Johnny, when are you guys getting married?
I don't know. You have to ask.
Just keep moving.
Those relationships broke up as his acting career was taking off.
In 1987, Johnny Depp landed a role in 21 Jump Street. It made him a heartthrob across the country, and he became a household name.
21 Jump Street, one of the first shows on the fledgling Fox network, earned Depp $45,000 per episode, but he was never comfortable in the role of teen idol.
The sex symbol teen idol stuff, that's not my goal.
Johnny didn't want to be a teen heartthrob. He wanted to do creative projects. And in 1990, he was cast as the lead in Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands.
Depp earned $1.5 million, and he met his next girlfriend, Winona Ryder, who was just 17 years old.
Depp got Winona Forever tattooed on his arm, but the relationship only lasted a few years. Depp's love life may have been rocky, but his acting career was taking off. By the time he turned 30, Depp was a multi-millionaire. And 5 years later, while shooting The Ninth Gate in Paris, Depp met Vanessa Paradis.
Paradis is a French singer-songwriter, musician, actress, and model.
The chance meeting would be the beginning of a long relationship.
Vanessa Paradis dated Johnny Depp for over 14 years, and although the pair never married, they did share 2 children together.
Reportedly, it was Paradis who encouraged Depp to consider more mainstream projects instead of the quirkier roles Depp had been drawn to. Depp's earnings and net worth grew by millions during the couple's relationship, and in 1999, he hired a financial management company, the Management Group, also known as TMG, to advise him on his growing wealth.
TMG was more than happy to help Johnny Depp manage his finances. He was big, but he was about to get a lot bigger. Nobody knew how rich he was about to become.
In 2003, 5 years into his relationship with Paradis, Depp landed the role of a lifetime, Captain Jack Sparrow in Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean.
Depp got paid $10 million to play the role Jack Sparrow. This is more money than he had ever gotten before, and he got a percentage of profits on top of it. The movie went on to make over $600 million, so Johnny Depp made out very well. But more importantly, he showed that he could anchor a blockbuster movie franchise, which caused his earning potential to skyrocket.
Depp made $18 million for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, $20 million for Dead Man's Chest, and $50 million for Alice in Wonderland.
It's always just a treat to get back together with Captain Jack. He just sort of moves forward. He doesn't really think about things all that much.
By this point, although still unmarried, Depp had been with Vanessa Paradis for 12 years. In 2009, Depp took a break from a string of blockbusters to make The Rum Diary, based on a novel by his friend Hunter S. Thompson.
Now, Hunter S. Thompson was one of his heroes. Johnny always liked this book and decided he wanted to make it into a movie. So he did it, got it out there. Now, true enough, Johnny only had a $15 million paycheck for himself at that time, which, considering how much he had made for other things, was kind of small. But guaranteed for Johnny, since this was a book by his hero, this was the greatest paycheck he probably ever got.
Depp's co-star was Amber Heard, an up-and-coming actress in her mid-20s. She had appeared in film and TV shows and was in a relationship with girlfriend Tasia Von Ray.
A lot of people had told her, hey, you're gonna have to keep this, quiet because this may hurt your chances in Hollywood. Back then, I mean, it wasn't really all that long ago, if something came out about, a same-sex relationship, that could have blackballed you and kept you from getting other great jobs. So Amber originally didn't care. Her deal was, I love this person, and I'll just see what happens with it.
Heard landed a lead role in The Rum Diary, and Depp and Heard hit it off.
It started as an on-set romance between Depp and Heard, where they were playing love interests with each other in a movie. But there was one big problem.
He was still with Vanessa Paradis at the time.
After Depp met Heard, his long relationship with Paradis began to unwind.
Sources said that Paradis began to resent Depp's success. She had sacrificed her own career to help with his. Depp said the spark was gone and they both deserved better.
Depp's split with Paradis would have been just a regular breakup if the millions he'd earned while with her weren't at stake. Depp and Paradis were a couple, but they'd never married. They didn't even have a common law marriage.
In most states in the country, there's only one way to get legally married, and that's to sign a marriage certificate and appear before somebody authorized to administer the ceremony under the laws of the state. However, a few states do recognize what's called a common law marriage.
Common law marriage is when couples, even though they don't formally go through with a marriage ceremony, they're holding themselves out as a married couple. So for all intents and purposes, under the law, it's still considered to be married. In Depp and Paradis' situation, this was not the case, because in order to do that, they would have had to hold themselves out publicly as a married couple, which they did not.
In this case, Johnny Depp said publicly that they weren't married and they never were planning to get married. That meant that Paradis wasn't entitled to alimony or a property settlement unless the pair had a private agreement.
With millions at stake, the stage was set for a legal battle.
Paradis could have sued Depp for child support, and she might have brought a claim if he had promised to always take care of her financially or share property with her, perhaps arguing that she relied on those promises by giving up her career to take care of the kids.
But there was no court battle. No public conflict, only news of an enormous settlement.
When Depp and Paradis split, he ended up giving her $150 million, which was half of his net worth. Why did he do this? Maybe it was to avoid some sort of courtroom drama. Or perhaps he paid half of his worth to Paradis just because he loved her and he was committed to her and their kids, and that may have been their agreement. It's unlikely anyone other than Depp and Paradis will ever really know.
Any professional would have told him you could give her less, and things would have been good. Some people thought, now is this just a PR move? Well, a PR move might have been just $50 million and a box of candy. No, I think this was done because this was a person who he truly had feelings for, and again, the mother of his 2 children.
Some may find it shocking that Depp paid $150 million to Paradis when he didn't have any legal obligation to do that.
I guess he's making so much money, I can make it up in my next couple of movies, so why not?
Now that his relationship with Paradis was over, Depp could publicly and expensively pursue Amber Heard.
One of the first big romantic gestures that Johnny did for Amber was buying her a horse, and he was actually on the set of The Lone Ranger, and he wanted her to be able to ride with him while he was on set.
Heard was then seen getting along with Depp's 2 children and even took his daughter Lily on shopping trips so that the two could bond.
Soon the couple was taking steps Depp had never taken with Paradis.
Johnny and Amber got engaged about 2 years after they were dating, and they got married the following year on Johnny's private island in the Bahamas. Vanessa Paradis even attended the wedding.
And apparently paying Paradis half of his net worth, didn't change Depp's carefree approach to money. He was still worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but he married Amber Heard without a prenuptial agreement.
This is a common mistake couples make, but you would think that someone of his net worth and with his access to legal and other professional counsel would have taken the time to do a prenup agreement.
In fact, it's reported that Depp's attorney, accountant, and managers at TMG all warned Depp to get a prenup. They say he initially agreed, but then married Heard without one.
Their relationship started off as normal as anyone else's.
It didn't last that way for long, though. They had more than their share of legal and personal problems.
Just 2 months after their wedding, the couple took a private jet to Australia, where Depp would be filming Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, a job that would pay him a cool $40 million. Despite the enormous paycheck, Depp was routinely late to set. It became such a problem that the director posted an employee outside Depp's house to let him know when Depp awoke and turned on the lights.
You know, Johnny doesn't have a lot of respect for rules, really.
Depp's disrespect for the rules would soon land him and Amber in hot water and cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars. On Fortune Fights, attorneys Danielle and Andy Mayoris explore the legal ups and downs of Hollywood celebrities. And after a meteoric rise to fame, Johnny Depp had his share of those. While starring in blockbuster films and raking in the cash, Depp found success and love with Vanessa Paradis. But in 2012, they split up after 14 years together, and Paradis made out to the tune of $150 million. Depp wasn't alone for long, marrying his Rum Diary co-star Amber Heard in 2015. 2 months after that, the couple found themselves on the front pages for all the wrong reasons.
The start of their legal troubles actually had nothing to do with their marriage. The couple flew into Queensland by private jet where Depp would be working on the 5th installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean. Depp and Heard violated biosecurity laws when they neglected to declare 2 Yorkshire Terriers to the Australian Customs Service.
Violating the country's strict biosecurity laws landed the couple in deep trouble with the Australian government, costing them a pretty penny.
Dogs from outside the country are required to be quarantined for at least 10 days before they're allowed to come in. Amber Heard was charged with 2 counts of illegally importing dogs and 1 count of producing a false document. Johnny Depp was not charged at all.
One Australian official even threatened to have the dogs put down.
Now, Mr. Depp has to either take his dogs back to California or we're going to have to euthanize them.
Depp had the dogs flown back to the US on a private jet, a flight that likely cost more than $400,000.
I'm not so concerned about the money, really.
But even with the dogs back in California, the Australian government wouldn't let up.
This lawsuit lasted for nearly a year. Heard appeared in the Southport Magistrates Court to plead guilty to falsifying quarantine documents. She argued that she had been sleep deprived and made a mistake. The biosecurity charges against her were dropped, and she was placed on a good behavior bond for 1 month. She also paid a $1,000 fine for crafting the false document.
The dogs survived, but the incident revealed Depp's extravagant spending.
The Guardian regarded the case as the highest profile criminal quarantine case in Australia's history. Now, as an apology, the couple released a now infamous video about the events that took place.
Australia is free of many pests and diseases that are commonplace around the world. That is why Australia has to have such strong biosecurity laws.
And Australians are just as unique, both warm and direct. When you disrespect Australian law, they will tell you firmly.
Protecting Australia is important.
Declare everything when you enter Australia.
Once Depp was off the hook with Australia, he could turn his attention to other matters, his cash flow and out-of-control spending.
By that point, Johnny Depp had financial problems too, and even the tens of millions of dollars that he was making could not keep up with his extravagant lifestyle.
When he didn't have cash, he'd take out loans to keep up with his spending. He bought art, jewelry, dozens of luxury cars, and enough Hollywood memorabilia to fill 12 storage facilities.
When his creditors stopped lending to him, Johnny Depp had to turn to TMG to borrow $5 million. They stepped in to loan him the money so that he would avoid a very public and embarrassing financial collapse.
His marriage was rumored to be collapsing as well. In May of 2016, Amber Heard attended the Met Gala alone. Well, not all alone. Heard showed up with handsome stylist Kimball Hastings, which raised eyebrows and questions. Depp's absence at the gala was duly noted in the press, and the coverage fueled speculation. Curious fans soon got their answer. 3 weeks later, after barely 1 year of marriage, the couple officially split, kicking off one of the ugliest divorces in recent Hollywood history.
When news of the divorce became public, it really ignited a media frenzy. This was one of Hollywood's biggest couples falling apart.
Depp's earlier split with Vanessa Paradis had looked easy, even friendly, but this time the story would be different. Amber Heard came out swinging.
After a little more than a year, Amber Heard filed for divorce. She cited the ever-popular irreconcilable differences, and she asked the judge to order Depp to pay her $50,000 per month in temporary spousal support and to cover all of her legal fees.
Depp's lawyers resisted. After all, Amber Heard was far from poor.
In court documents, it showed that Heard was earning close to $13,000 a month. Depp asked the court to deny Amber Heard's request for spousal support, along with the request to pay her attorney fees and give her additional assets.
Heard's annual income was less than 1% of what Depp earned, but she was hardly without resources. Then again, Heard also told the court her expenses were almost $44,000 a month, including $10,000 a month just for rent. In this instance, the judge sided with Depp.
The court ruled that Depp did not have to pay temporary spousal support, but the divorce could still cost Depp a large sum of money, as the two did not have a prenuptial agreement when they got married.
It is surprising that Depp had just given away $150 million to Paradis a few years earlier, and now he gets married without a prenuptial agreement.
While he certainly didn't learn his lesson, the rights and responsibilities of the two of them were completely up in the air in the event of divorce, so when they did end up going to court, it was a big mess to sort out.
Without a prenup, then the laws of the state the married couple reside in determines a split in a divorce, unless they work something out outside of the court system.
Other states are not as favorable to the lower earning spouse as California.
California is a community property state, meaning marital assets are divided 50-50. So if Depp and Heard had combined their holdings, half of Depp's net worth could be on the line, and that's not all.
All of the couple's earnings during their marriage would also have to be divided. This alone would be a hefty sum because Depp reportedly earned $30 million in 2015.
The announcement of the split set off a storm of accusations and counter-accusations between Depp and Heard that played out in court and in the press. Only days after filing for divorce, Amber Heard's lawyers asked a judge for a restraining order against Johnny Depp.
Amber Heard claimed that Depp had been verbally and physically abusive during the entirety of their relationship. She reportedly lived in fear that Depp would show up unannounced to terrorize her.
The press reported Heard's request for the restraining order, but the contents of such a request are kept confidential. Nobody knew what evidence of abuse Heard had submitted, not even Depp.
Generally, a person would have to file a sworn statement describing the abuse that occurred or threats that were made, and supply supporting documentation such as photographs. A judge would enter a temporary restraining order on an ex parte basis, which means without the accused party or his or her attorney present.
Then it would be scheduled for a court hearing with both sides and their attorneys present, for the judge to hear the whole story and decide whether to continue the restraining order or dissolve it.
Whatever evidence the request contained, it was enough for the judge.
Heard was granted a temporary restraining order which prevented Depp from being within 100 feet of her.
By granting Heard's request, the judge seemed to be confirming that Johnny Depp was an abuser.
A temporary restraining order does not have the same legal impact as a final judgment or order at the end of a case. In fact, a TRO is granted at the very beginning of a case based on the allegations from one party alone. There's no evidence at all that's evaluated when this is granted, and it's meant to be a temporary band-aid until the evidence can be brought to court.
Now, legally, it really doesn't mean a lot, but it does all of a sudden put a cloud over Johnny. Why does she need this?
Simply by filing for this legal document, she now casts doubt on Johnny Depp's character. And even the best actor in the world relies on his image and reputation in order to get work. Once this is tarnished, it can be very hard to recover. Even unproven accusations can lead to an actor's downfall.
Depp's allies immediately leapt to his defense.
When Amber came out with these allegations of abuse from Johnny Depp, his daughter, Vanessa Paradis, and his former ex-wife all spoke out.
Vanessa Paradis wrote a letter in support of Depp, saying, "In all the years I have known Johnny, he has never been physically abusive with me, and this looks nothing like the man I lived with for 14 wonderful years." And Depp seemed to have the support of the public, too. Many saw Amber as the villain.
So Johnny Depp, even though he does have a good store of public support and a lot of fans, needs to be careful that he doesn't lose that support. It can turn on him very quickly.
Many people spoke out on social media saying that Amber was really just trying to get money from Johnny Depp in the divorce, and they didn't really believe the allegations against him.
There's a court of law and a court of public opinion. Now, in the court of law, Amber won. In the court of public opinion, she got clobbered. People were out there attacking her on social media and various other places, just saying, how dare you say these things about Johnny?
Comedian Doug Stanhope, a friend of Depp's, wrote a column claiming Heard's abuse allegations were her way of blackmailing Depp. In response, Heard sued Stanhope for defamation, and Heard's legal team went on the offensive.
Her divorce attorney said that they were ashamed of the media's coverage of the story and that Heard could not live her life with such vicious, false, and malicious allegations directed towards her.
The doubts surrounding Heard's claims were put to rest because she had proof. After a year of marriage, Amber Heard filed for divorce from Johnny Depp.
A lot of times in divorces, you see crazy behavior back and forth between the parties and their attorneys.
The couple's split exploded into charges of domestic abuse.
It was actually alleged that Johnny wound up his arm like a baseball player and threw a cell phone at Amber, that he was grabbing her face violently, she had bruises on her eyes and on her cheeks, and that he was just very rough with her during their arguments.
Depp's friends and fans came to his aid and leveled their own accusations.
When comedian Doug Stanhope, a friend of Depp's, wrote a column accusing Heard of blackmail, she filed a defamation suit.
Many saw Amber Heard as a villain. But when photographs from Heard's request for a restraining order got into the press, skeptics were forced to take her accusations more seriously.
People magazine published images of Heard with bruises on her eye and lip. The photos were leaked from the evidence in Heard's restraining order.
Of course, people were out there thinking, oh, you're a liar, you're a gold digger, you just want the money, you just want the publicity. Well, next thing you know, these pictures come out. And all of a sudden, in the minds of the public, that begins to make them doubt Johnny Depp a little bit.
The photos lent weight to Heard's accusations and undermined the supportive statements of Depp's friends and loved ones. But only days later, TMZ reported that in 2009, Amber Heard had herself been arrested for domestic abuse against her then-girlfriend, Tassia Von Ray.
Amber Heard and Tassia Von Ray had an argument at an airport. Things escalated from there, and reportedly, Heard grabbed her and struck her arm. Police were called, and they actually ended up booking Amber Heard with misdemeanor domestic violence. However, the prosecutor declined to bring charges. But that didn't stop Johnny Depp's legal team from being able to use this incident to potentially cast doubt against Amber Heard.
But Tassia came to Amber Heard's defense. She said that Heard was innocent and instead focused her attention on the police involved. She issued a statement saying, in 2009, Amber was wrongfully accused for an incident that was misinterpreted and over-sensationalized by two individuals in a powerful position. She then accused the police of misogyny and homophobia and pointed out that the charges against Heard were quickly dropped.
Amber Heard retracted her request for spousal support, saying it had been misinterpreted. But the fight was far from over.
It's not uncommon that during a divorce, a spouse will ask for spousal support. Now, Amber Heard, however, was attacked by so many people thinking that she was a gold digger that she decided, I'm just gonna drop this. I've got enough money of my own. I just wanna make sure that my reputation and career and everything like that, just stays intact, and I will just go on.
Only 2 months later, a video surfaced. Apparently recorded by Heard during an argument, it showed a dark side of Depp.
A video was released on TMZ showing Depp kicking and slamming cabinet doors in the couple's kitchen. In the video, Heard was apologizing while Depp poured a glass of wine.
You? This morning? I don't think so.
Depp eventually noticed that she had been recording and grabbed the device.
You got this going? Oh, really?
From Amber Heard's perspective, the release of the video showing Johnny Depp exhibiting abusive behavior was a good move. It puts her in a position of being a victim, somebody who needs to be protective from an individual who's erratic and has possible anger issues.
Oh, you're crazy.
Depp's camp responded by claiming the video had been heavily edited. Things were getting ugly, and it wasn't over yet.
TMZ published additional photographs of what appeared to be Depp's fingertip cut off.
The PR battle continued, and the accusations went from dark to darker.
The site reported that, according to Amber Heard, Depp was drunk, high on ecstasy, and overcome with rage when he cut off his fingertip, and then dipped it in blue paint and wrote Billy Bob and Easy Amber on the mirror because he thought Heard had an affair with Billy Bob Thornton.
Perhaps fearing even more bad publicity after the disturbing photos and video became public, the couple declared a truce.
Depp and Heard settled their divorce, and Heard's lawyers withdrew her request for a restraining order. The couple agreed on a $7 million settlement.
Now, from Heard's perspective, getting $7 million for a marriage that lasted just over a year seems pretty good. But when you look at the income that was brought in during that marriage, she could have gotten more like $15 million if she had really pushed for it.
But unlike Vanessa Paradis, she didn't have to give up her career to focus on Depp's career and stay home with the children. So, you know what? Walking away from a one-year marriage with $7 million, probably not such a bad deal.
And it certainly is a good career move for her.
She was already painted as someone who was just after the money, so settling mitigated that. And maybe by walking away from a larger payout, she may have helped her career in the long run.
In the end, the high-profile hostilities seemed to exhaust both Depp and Heard. The back-and-forth attacks left both of them bruised.
So after lots of mudslinging in the media during their divorce, both Amber and Johnny spoke out and they made a joint statement that their relationship was passionate and volatile, but it was also bound by love, and that neither one of them had made false statements against the other, and neither one was seeking any kind of financial gain.
This joint statement seemed to back up Heard. They agreed that her accusations were not fabricated in an attempt to seek a greater settlement. Notably, the statement only said there was never an intent of harm. It didn't say that no physical harm had occurred.
The statement seemed designed to put an end to the fighting and to repair the damage done to Depp and Heard's images.
Amber was still relatively new to Hollywood, and Johnny was very much an established star. So if she continued to pursue the divorce and speak out against these abuse claims, she would have jeopardized her career potentially and been blacklisted in the industry.
At this point, Heard just wanted to put all this behind her and move on with her life. Lawsuits are exhaustive, time-consuming, and expensive. They can take over your life between meetings with attorneys, court appearances, depositions, not to mention the stress.
Heard also dropped her defamation lawsuit against comedian Doug Stanhope, Depp's friend who had accused Heard of blackmail.
It's hard to win money in a defamation case. A public figure like Heard has to prove not only that the person made a false statement of fact that lowered her esteem in the community, but that Stanhope made the statement even though he knew it was false or acted with reckless disregard of the truth. This is a very hard legal standard to meet.
She may have dropped her defamation case because it would be very hard to prove. What were the damages? Was it really because of his article, or was it because of other media speculation and things coming out in the press? Plus, if she moved forward with this, it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, plus expose her to more public scrutiny pursuing this in the court system.
Then again, Heard may not have been serious about pursuing the suit in the first place.
When Amber Heard filed her defamation lawsuit against Mr. Stanhope, it looked like she probably never intended to take the case to trial. In fact, as we so often see these days, litigation is nothing more than a PR strategy. It brings things out to the open, it forces your adversary to make moves that benefit you, and oftentimes it forces a settlement that is quite favorable.
It's the act of suing as a PR move that matters. Financially, carrying it through to completion often doesn't make sense.
But Amber Heard's biggest problem wasn't Stanhope's column. It was Johnny Depp's box office power and celebrity mystique. Johnny made money, and that's what Hollywood is all about.
Hollywood is very much a close-knit group of people. Reputation is very important, and Johnny is very well connected. So people could have seen Amber speaking out as kind of just too messy of a situation that they wouldn't want to be involved in. Amber had faced a lot of backlash by saying that Johnny was abusive, that she was only making these claims for money.
It's fair to say that Johnny Depp's career will do well irrespective of how the divorce settlement turns out. But for Amber Heard, it's a different story.
Heard announced that she would donate all of her $7 million settlement. But in Hollywood, talk is cheap, and announcing a donation isn't the same as delivering the goods.
TMZ corroborated that she had paid the charities a pledged amount of what she had received from Depp. It was not the whole $7 million.
In a career spanning more than 3 decades, Johnny Depp has earned accolades, awards, hundreds of millions of dollars, and a reputation as a big spender.
Have a big smile, please, Johnny.
Following their split, Depp gave $150 million to former girlfriend and mother of his children, Vanessa Paradis, apparently without a fight. But he wasn't willing to settle as easily during his bitter divorce with Amber Heard. And despite the legal expenses and $7 million settlement, he wasn't giving up on his lavish lifestyle. Expert attorneys Danielle and Andy Mayoris have the scoop on how Depp's spending and legal issues have impacted his bottom line.
I don't think there's any question that Depp was a carefree spender. I mean, here he is spending millions and millions of dollars.
I mean, yachts, 14 different residences. How many houses can one person live in? Of course, this is the same guy who gave $150 million to Paradis when he had no legal obligation to do so.
Amber Heard had pledged her entire $7 million settlement to the ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. Although the couple had agreed to a settlement, the money had yet to change hands. Heard couldn't give money to her charities until she received it from Depp, and Depp wasn't letting go of it easily. Maybe denying Heard the money was Depp's way of landing one more blow in this bitter divorce, or maybe he didn't have it.
Heard had to file a request for order at the Los Angeles Superior Court after Depp had failed to fulfill the requirements of the settlement. Johnny Depp still owed Amber Heard $6.8 million. He only paid her $200,000 of the $7 million he owed.
It had looked like the fighting was over, but it turned out there was one more round.
Depp's attorney filed paperwork disputing the claims. They said that she was only seeking a large settlement as a blatant attempt to extend her 15 minutes of fame. Depp's legal team then filed new court documents demanding that Heard pay him $100,000 in legal fees as sanctions for bringing forward this request. They also asked that $100,000 be deducted from his divorce settlement for every 10 days that she did not pay.
Heard's attorney said that with Depp's recent setbacks at the box office, he was glad to see that Depp had rediscovered his comic touch with his laughable motion. Heard's team said they looked forward to a victory in court and providing sick children and women in need with the money that Johnny Depp was denying them.
Johnny Depp simply should have written the check. Heard never should have had to go to court to require him to do what he already agreed to do in the first place.
The issue came before a judge on Friday, January 13th, 2017. It didn't go well for Depp. His request for sanctions against Heard was denied, and the judge ordered him to pay the remaining $6.8 million to Heard herself, not the charities she'd chosen to support.
Once the money was going to charity, you'd think that really would have simplified things, wouldn't you? But it didn't work out that way.
Nope, then the big issue came into play, the tax deduction. A $7 million donation, that's a nice write-off on someone's tax return. But Amber Heard saw it differently. The money was hers under the settlement, so why shouldn't she get the deduction?
The public fights, the legal expenses, the ugly accusations, and the leaked images, it all could have been avoided.
As an estate planning attorney, I think that most people can benefit from prenuptial agreements, especially if you're someone like Johnny Depp and you have millions of dollars to protect and you have 2 kids from a prior relationship.
But it seems that despite the advice he got from his managers and lawyers, Depp threw caution to the wind, both legally and financially.
Johnny Depp apparently had gotten advice from multiple people to get the prenup, and he didn't want to follow that advice. But that's what you have professionals for. If you're not going to follow that advice, why work with the professionals at all?
At the very least, if Depp would have listened to his advisors, he would have saved himself a lot of stress and aggravation.
But this court battle wouldn't be Johnny Depp's last.
Depp's legal issues had not ended after the divorce. In fact, they were only getting started.
On the heels of his public and punishing divorce, Depp would launch another attack, this time against his own financial managers.
Depp filed a lawsuit against his management company, the Management Group, also known as TMG, for allegedly defrauding him of tens of millions of dollars by mismanaging his finances, taking out loans without his approval, and hiding the perilous state of his affairs from him.
Do you have a message for your fans right now, Mr. Depp?
I'm scared to death. I'm frightened, and I want to go home.
He claimed he only learned of his financial troubles after he fired TMG and hired new financial managers. He said TMG cost him $25 million, and he wanted them to pay him back. TMG countersued.
TMG claimed that Depp was solely responsible for any of his current financial woes.
Depp hadn't been behaving like somebody with financial worries. Reportedly, he'd spent $30,000 a month on wine alone.
We're gonna be drunk in a minute.
We're not going to drink the whole thing.
What do you mean we're not gonna drink the whole thing?
The actor refused to live within his means and reportedly ignored any warnings that TMG presented him about his financial conditions.
How could a star who'd earned hundreds of millions of dollars in his career be in debt?
He was spending thousands on things that most people would probably only spend a few hundred, if that, on. And they wanted to show that this is just who he is. It's not really their fault that Johnny spent all this money.
The counter-complaint by TMG is interesting. They detailed Depp's outrageous spending habits, which equated to $2 million per month.
As part of TMG's defense, they used these figures to inform others how ridiculous Depp's spending had become. They claimed to have kept him well informed that he was spending more money than he was earning.
But that didn't stop him.
According to legal documents from the lawsuit, TMG claimed that Depp had owned 14 different residences. He had spent $18 million on a yacht, $4 million on a failed record label, and $200,000 a month on private planes. Plus $150,000 a month on round-the-clock security, $300,000 a month to maintain a staff of 40 people, and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a sound engineer to feed him lines so he would not have to memorize his lines on set.
TMG said Depp had also paid $3 million to have the ashes of his friend, writer Hunter S. Thompson, shot out of a specially designed cannon. They said they warned the actor to reduce his spending, but he wouldn't listen.
TMG also detailed their side of the story. They claimed that Depp's attorney also repeatedly warned him, and they provided several examples of text messages and emails showing the warnings and Depp's reactions to them.
When TMG would advise Johnny Depp to decrease his spending habits and not live such an extravagant lifestyle, all Depp did was curse at them and then increase his spending habits. TMG claimed it wasn't them, but it was Depp that was solely responsible for his financial situation.
TMG attached to their lawsuit different examples of the ways they had warned Johnny Depp of these spending monies, and they detailed conversations where they time and time again tried to hammer home with him, you can't keep spending money this way. It just didn't seem to get through to Depp. Depp was in deep trouble. He was millions of dollars in debt and would find any way to try to win money in this case. This couldn't have been good for his psyche, which after his marriage to Heard was already questioned as being potentially unstable. So how would Johnny Depp respond when so many of his assets were at risk of being taken away?
The world would soon find out. Johnny Depp has played everything from an undercover cop to a lovable rogue pirate, amassing and spending an eye-popping fortune in the hundreds of millions. But Depp lost big in his divorce with Amber Heard to the tune of $7 million and $150 million in his earlier split from Vanessa Paradis. When the multimillionaire learned he was in debt, he sued his financial managers, TMG, who he believed were to blame. But TMG countersued, saying Depp's problems were all his own making. Legal analysts Danielle and Andy Mayoris dissect pricey celebrity legal battles, including the legal showdown between TMG and Johnny Depp.
When TMG filed its countercomplaint, they tried to do two things. One, they sued Depp for money that they were owed, but then they took it a step further and asked the court to declare that they were right and Johnny Depp had been wrong. But that's not really how the court process works. So the judge threw out that portion of the case, but still let TMG sue Johnny Depp for the money that was owed.
TMG used a public court filing to give as many details as possible about Depp's extravagant spending habits in order to try and prove to the court and to the world that his problems were not their fault.
In the filing, TMG claimed Depp ignored their advice to get a prenup before marrying Amber Heard, a move that could have saved him millions.
A financial advisor can only give advice. He or she can't force the client to take the advice.
The whole point of these advisors is so you can benefit from their advice. And if you're going to hire these people and not follow their advice, what's the point of hiring them in the first place? That's just like throwing your money away.
When you have millions coming in, it can seem like you have infinite resources.
Johnny Depp said he didn't know what was going on with his finances, and he trusted and relied on TMG completely. So when he had money troubles later on, he said it was all their fault. The problem with that excuse is that everybody has a basic responsibility to know at some level what's going on with their money.
That's when things with TMG turned trivial. TMG said that Johnny Depp was, quote, fully aware that he was illegally bringing his dogs to Australia in 2015. Depp had claimed the scandal of Pistol and Boo was nothing more than a misunderstanding.
TMG bringing up the incident with the dogs in Australia may have seemed spiteful. They accused Johnny Depp of knowingly lying to the Australian government about the whole dog situation.
TMG took a risk in coming after Depp like this. Here they were filing public court documents, airing Johnny Depp's dirty laundry for all the world to see. Their other high-profile celebrity clients may be thinking, if they did this to Johnny Depp, are they gonna do this to me too?
A jury trial would have been too risky for both Depp and TMG. The negative exposure alone from the testimony of all of them, especially Johnny Depp, would have been very damaging, and trials are way too expensive and risky.
If Depp and TMG don't reach a settlement, then it will go before a jury.
Jurors could side with an award-winning actor they've watched on movie screens for decades. Or they could see an irresponsible celebrity who ignored sound advice for years and then blamed his advisors when money got tight. Ultimately, it didn't come to that.
In the end, Depp and TMG reached a confidential settlement through mediation and avoided having to go to a jury trial.
But that wasn't the end of Johnny's legal woes. Depp also sued his former talent lawyer, Jake Bloom, for $30 million. Depp claimed that Bloom was collecting contingent fees without a proper contract.
So Johnny could actually really use the money from this lawsuit because even though he's earned millions and millions over the course of his career, he is pretty far in debt.
Johnny Depp says he relied and trusted his professionals, but the problem is he obviously didn't. He wasn't following their advice, and if he really didn't believe that they were doing a good job for him, he should have gotten rid of them and brought in people that he did trust.
Johnny Depp's erratic behavior and his involvement in constant litigation could at some point damage his career. And even if he does fail or fall out of favor, all he needs to do is come out with a campaign where he's got the right kind of exposure and portray himself as a sympathetic character, which he's quite capable of doing, and he can turn it around. But he could be overestimating his abilities.
Even after the lawsuits, the divorce, and the reports of excessive spending, Johnny Depp has shown no signs of slowing down or heeding his financial team's advice. He has multiple films in production and is touring with his band, the Hollywood Vampires, no doubt earning millions in the process.
You have to love it so much that you don't care, that you make an ass of yourself.
But by all accounts, Depp could have saved himself a lot of money had he listened to his advisors.
This is particularly important to those with a large net worth and in second or third marriage situations. With a prenup, you can determine how the assets are allocated if there's a divorce, and even put financial repercussions in case of infidelity.
It seems like Depp treats money like monopoly money. I mean, who knows, maybe he does have a treasure trunk of gold buried somewhere that we don't know about.
I think, the goals are a little more time with the kids, a little more freedom, a little more time off. Just
more space.
More space.